Welcome to the Mobilized podcast. We equip Christ followers to boldly and courageously live mobilized in their faith, purpose, and life. Let's join James and Nichole.
Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Mobilized podcast. I'm James.
And I'm Nichole. I'm already giggling.
And she's already giggling. I was making googly eyes at her. Because we love flirting with one another.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of episodes of the podcast, we've been talking about God's response to our failures and obedience or disobedience.
Yeah.
And, you know, now that I think about it, truth be told, that sounds like a lot of marriages.
Yeah. Yes. Sounds like ours, right?
So let's talk about marriage.
Let's do it. We equip Christ followers to be mobilized in faith, purpose, and life. And what's more real in life than marriage?
So let's get raw and real. Let's be transparent. Nichole and I had the privilege of celebrating our 28th wedding anniversary.
Yay!
Woo! Can
So
you believe
exciting.
she puts up with me? And I can still make her giggle.
Yes, all the time, actually.
All the time. I love it. And you know that I'm going to be trying this whole episode to flirt with her and make her giggle. So
okay, that also means it's going to get inappropriate because he knows you'll get a reaction
it's a good
out
thing
of
this
me.
is audio, not video. But it's a family show, so we're going to keep it appropriate. But we are going to be transparent, and we can get raw and real. And we'll talk about some of the things that are obstacles in marriage and some of the successes we found over 28 years that have kept us in love, kept us courting one another and enjoying the gift of one another that God's given us.
Enjoying marriage.
Yeah.
That's not something you hear very often, actually.
A lot of people I know endure it.
Yes.
I've even had friends say, oh, you had to hang out with your family, or, oh, it's date night. Way to take one for the team, James. I'm like, wait, what? No, are you kidding me? Hanging out with you is taking one for the team. Hanging out with my wife, now that's
a good time.
That's a good time.
That's a good time.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, and so I think that's a good place to start. Who should be involved in your marriage? What does that look like?
Well, definitely your mother-in-law.
Obviously. I got to be real careful. I'm just
Love
kidding.
you, Mom.
Yeah. We have a couple of mother-in-laws that might be listening. Wait, mothers-in-law. See, I caught myself that time. That might be listening.
What's the plural of cul-de-sac?
You know what? Let's not. Just like the way we say gooses or geeses, or we have a whole conversation in our family. Somebody will say something, and because we can't let anything go in our family, it becomes a massive discussion with a lot of Googling and some defending of wrong words. And at the end of it,
some of us dig in.
Yes.
Even though we're wrong.
So let's just not show them that side of us now.
Fair enough.
But so who all should be involved in a relationship? The Bible says it's like a strand of 3 cords. So
your pastor is definitely one then, right?
That would be a hard no.
Oh, hard pass on the pastor. Okay.
Yeah,
so
crazy.
I'm guessing bride and groom are 2 of those.
Yes.
Okay, so
And the
nanny?
third.
No. Preschool teacher.
You better be glad you're far from me. I would have kicked you.
I'm going to go with God. Do I hear God?
God.
Yes.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay, so you have God first, then the husband, then the wife.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. Now, that's hard for some of us because we have friends and family and a lot of people who have a lot of thoughts, a lot of opinions, a lot of special interest in your relationship. But are they invited into it? No. Absolutely not. It is between you two and God. And why is that so important? It's important because there's only 2 in the relationship that have to live for each other, die to themselves for each other, the way Jesus did for the church. You can't have that if you have 15 other people in that relationship.
But I thought the scriptures actually say, take your spouse and cleave to your mother, obey your father. Isn't that the way it goes?
No.
A man must leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. The 2 become one.
Exactly.
So when the 2 become one, that's when the magic happens. It's just an immediate sprinkle of pixie dust, right?
Yes.
2 selfish people come together, and miraculously, when they say I do, and they exchange vows, rings, and a magical kiss, then they're selfless, and they're incredible spouses that are giving, loving, and everything the other dreamt of. from day one?
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Because that's the way it works for us.
Right, obviously. So what does that look like to be the perfect wife or the perfect husband? I actually get this question a lot. Like, I want to be the perfect wife. I want to be, I want my husband to be the perfect husband. But what does that look like? And what I usually tell ladies who are looking to get married or in a marriage and say, what does a perfect wife look like? There isn't one set. There isn't one set of rules. The one thing the strand that goes through all relationships is you just being great for your spouse, whatever that looks like. And that's why you can't have 100 people in that relationship, because they're all different and they're going to have a different opinion on how you are to respond or react to anything that your spouse does or requests or wants or needs. They're going to have their own opinion. Well, they're not in that marriage. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to become the best friend and not the best wife. Now, I'll give in to my friend, make them feel like I'm listening and I value their advice. So I'm going to treat my spouse how my friend wants. Or I'm going to treat my spouse how my mom wants, or my mother-in-law, or my father-in-law, or my sister-in-law, or whatever. The list goes on and on. A coworker who has no investment in your marriage at all whatsoever, who's struggling in their own marriage and is trying to give you advice in yours. That's why you have to block all that out. Why your job is just to be the best spouse to your spouse. And
I get asked this all the time, so I think it's kind of worth mentioning. And I'll ask you the question. I mean, is there one perfect person for each? I mean, is there a unique soulmate? Because that's what I hear a lot. How will I know if he or she is the one? Right? You ever heard that?
Oh, yes.
And I have my thoughts on it. What are your thoughts?
Oh, you're just throwing that out there. Not in the notes, I see. I believe throughout history, modern history is really the first time where we get to choose our own spouse, right? Before, everybody was paired, even maybe before they were born, definitely within the first few years of their life. So they're not choosing their spouse. What they have to choose is their response. They have to choose to love. They have to choose to be patient, and they have to choose to fall in love with this person. So is there a perfect person? I'd say you're perfect for me. I wouldn't trade you in for anybody. I feel like you're the one, but I also feel like we chose that.
So you could have been this perfect with someone else?
Obviously.
Guys,
I mean,
I'm going to have to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after these messages from our sponsor and divorce lawyer.
Hi, we're back. We're back. Thanks for staying.
No, but that's exactly what my response was going to be. And that's funny because we didn't talk about that beforehand. But yeah, throughout recorded history, it's arranged marriages primarily. In a lot of the world, they still react that way. And the ones that thrive choose the relationship, choose to make the best of it, choose to love, choose to serve. Only now is it feelings-based, driven-based, Hollywood-based, fairy tale-based.
Right, social media.
So I think really it would be fair to just kind of sweep away and discard for now the notion that there is just one perfect person. And this kind of serendipitous encounter where if you happen to miss it, you're 5 minutes late to the train station and you missed the one that was for you, and she happened to go on a coffee date with someone else. Now the dominoes have fallen. Now you're with you're with your second choice. She was with her third choice, and then their first choice and second choice are with their fifth and eighth choice. And everyone's lives are ruined because you are not with the one because you were 5 minutes late to the train, and so you missed coffee with the one. You can see how this is like ludicrous. But so many people start there. We've done marriage counseling for years and years and years. We've talked to countless couples before marriage, during marriage, even borderline post-marriage, and walking them through these transitions and hard seasons of life. And that's an important point that I think we need to really just camp around and make sure that we've kind of been clear what our position is and what we think it really is scriptural. Other than Eve being created specifically for Adam, post that, it was choice. It was whatever it was, whatever circumstances, but you made the decision. I'm in this commitment. I'm in this covenant.
Right.
So now what's my response to it? And I like that was your wording. What is my response to the situation I'm in? And that's where we found ourselves a lot in year one. As many of you know our story, we only knew each other and dated for 6 weeks before we got married. So, a lot of people, say, I've been married for 25 years, but we dated 8 years before that. So we've really known each other, since whatever. That's not our story.
No,
we've literally been married as long as we've known each other. and so we dated and got to know each other the whole first year of our marriage. I mean, I quite frankly didn't really even know your middle name until we were signing the marriage license. Like, what is she? I go by my middle name. She didn't even know what my first name was till she signed the license. And, who's this guy? I'm like, oh, sorry, that's my first name, but I don't go by that. So, like, wait, what other secrets do I not know? But we were discovering each other and had a lot of that. We have to make a decision to fight past it. Quite honestly, I say it kind of tongue in cheek, but there's a lot of truth to it. In that first 12 months, a lot of my response was simply, please stick it out for at least the first year so that the naysayers who think we're going to fail don't have ammunition. Because so many people are saying this isn't going to work. They're betting against us because we were so crazy to just jump into this thing without 25 years of courtship and a 5-year engagement. And we didn't go through premarital counseling, which I don't advise.
Right.
But for us, we were in it, and people said, oh, this is never going to work. First, they must have got married so quickly because they were pregnant, which we weren't.
Which is why we waited forever to have Kyle.
Correct.
Yes.
And then the second is, well, it's not going to work.
Right.
And so we fought through that almost in a defiance to the naysayers, but that was part of a commitment. Let's stick it out, at least to show them they're wrong.
Right.
But we were unified in that commitment, and that got us through some of the hard times. I can remember Nicole being so mad at me one time, she threw a roll of toilet paper at me. This thing hit the ground and just went rolling and unrolled as it rolled toward me, and we just had to stop and laugh hysterically. Yes. I don't even know what we were discussing or debating.
And I threw a Tylenol at you.
You did throw a Tylenol.
Yeah. We never found it either.
No.
Yeah.
And the headaches magically went away. But we've had some fun times, spirited times, animated times, hard times. But what was always at the core from the beginning was commitment. We decided no exit strategy. We're not going to talk divorce.
Right.
We didn't ever go spend the night at mom or dad's house, go get a hotel room.
Right.
Actually, we've never even said, I'll go sleep on the couch. I'll go sleep in the guest room. Yeah. We've stayed in the same bed every night. Yeah. Even when you're not happy with me.
Even when I'm on my side of the bed, all the way at the edge of the bed.
Stealing the covers.
Yes.
I'm going to fight for them too. And we might be back to back instead of spooning.
Yeah.
But
because somehow in the back of mind, when you walk to another room, when you sleep in another bed, you're sending a message.
Yes.
You're putting that distance there and you're saying, I don't even want to be in the same room with you. I don't even want to try.
Yeah.
And you know it. You know when you're doing that.
Yes.
That it's going to hurt the other person.
And it's harder to come back from that.
And it's harder to come back.
The further you walk away, pride and circumstances make it harder to come back. And then sometimes you don't see a way back.
Right.
You want to. Maybe even you're over the issue and you're like, that was stupid. I just want things back the way they were. I want them to be good again. But I don't know how.
Right.
I don't know how to start this conversation. I don't know how to bring about the unity and the intimacy that we used to have that I know is not there. How do I make the move towards that?
Right.
But you've created the distance, and unnecessarily so. So I think that's one of the important things that we would say would be valuable for anyone listening in a relationship is don't go so far that you don't even know how to get back from that.
Yes.
So keep proximity.
Yep.
Even when it's hard.
Because one, that's pride, but two, in your mind, you may be thinking fairness. Like, it's not fair I always have to apologize. It's not fair I always have to come back. It's not fair that I'm always the one who has to give. And those thoughts start to creep in, and all of a sudden, your spouse becomes your enemy.
The enemy, yes.
All of a sudden, the spouse is the enemy. And all you can think about is what you get and what you don't get. What your expectations, what you want of the other person, what you think they should be giving. And you're no longer that strand of 3 cords. You're by yourself out there trying to make somebody else be or do something that you want. And one of the things that has worked really well for us, early on in our marriage, we heard something. Marriage is not 50-50. It's
100.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed I said it's not 50-50. One person gives 50, the other person gives 50. We said it's 100%.
100. You each give 100.
But if the other person's not giving 100%,
you still give
100%.
And that's hard to do, but it accomplishes two things, two very important things. It keeps the focus off yourself.
Yeah.
When you're living to give 100%, you're initially in those selfish moments, you think, well, what if I give 100 and they only give 50?
Right.
What if they only give 80? What if they give 10?
Right.
I'm going to get taken advantage of. And then our defenses go up.
Right.
And now, again, they're the opponent. They're the enemy.
Right.
But when you're focused on simply giving 100%, not conditionally based on the percentage you receive back, you're not really thinking or focused on or about what you're getting back.
Right.
And it's easier to enjoy giving and serving and loving.
Right.
And then if you're married to a real jerk, it might be possible, but most people cannot receive 100% and it not soften their heart.
Right.
So even if you have a jerk of a spouse that's not giving 100%, doesn't know how, doesn't think they should have to, you giving 100% softens their heart. They can't help it.
Right.
And you'll see them start to give more.
Right. Right. I wrote something years ago, probably 7 years ago or so on it was for our anniversary. And I wrote this. I said, it is possible to put your spouse first and not feel like you're second. It is possible to give and not feel taken from. It is possible to think of them first and not feel forgotten.
That's good.
It is possible to do that. It depends on where your perspective, where your perspective and where you're expecting, what you're expecting from the relationship, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So when I'm thinking of you, when I think, what's his favorite thing? I'm not thinking, I'm giving up my favorite thing. I'm thinking, I want him to have the best of things. The way Jesus did that for us. And that's why it's so important to have that relationship with Jesus, is because Jesus teaches us how to do that already by doing it for us.
Yeah.
So when we're doing it, we're not just doing it for our spouse because there's 3 people in the relationship. You're also doing it for Jesus.
Wow.
Because he's there.
Yeah.
He's there. There's no separating the two. How you treat your spouse in marriage is how you're treating Jesus. He's in that relationship with you as well.
That's good.
How you treat yourself. If you put yourself first, then you're putting not only your spouse second, but Jesus as well. And it's so important for even those who are, let's say you're married to someone who's not a believer. And so it doesn't look like a strand of 3 cords. It looks like you and Jesus and then this other person, right?
Yeah.
Who's outside of that. But it's not true. If Jesus is in you, then he's in your home. And if he's in your home, then he has the ability to work. Now, if you have decided, I'm going to treat my spouse poorly, I'm going to treat them like the enemy, then they'll never see Jesus in your home because he's not in you.
Yes.
So it's so important to understand that to give does not mean you're being taken from.
Yeah.
It means that Jesus is working through you in your marriage. And I think for me, that has just been huge. And it changed everything in my mind and in my perspective. It also makes you very aware of the outside voices that want to have an opinion on your marriage. Like my favorite one, taking one for the team. I'm like, that's me you're talking about. You're saying he doesn't want to spend time with me. This isn't some idea. I'm a person. And so you want to take that personally. And then you realize, no, it's not against me. It's against marriage. And when it's against marriage, who's the father of that? It's not God, because he wants to be in the marriage. That's just words from the enemy, period.
Yeah.
So I would say, like all of us, we need helps, right? In our marriage. We know in our spiritual life, we need help, and we go to the Bible. And we go to respected pastors or counselors or people in our life that we respect that know the Word of God. Hopefully that's what you're doing. Hopefully that's what you're doing. We also need that in marriage as well.
Yeah.
So what voices should we allow in our marriage? Because like I said, we're 3.
Yes.
You, me, God. And if we want advice, who do we go to?
Well, the most famous person you can find, of course.
Well, obviously.
Yeah. Who has the most Instagram followers, and that's who I'm going to take marriage advice from. 1.2 million people can't be wrong, Nicole.
Yeah.
So I won't name any names, of course.
Right.
But I think what's most important, and this may rub some pastors and church leaders wrong, or, the famous people with the millions of Instagram followers that think because they're followed that their advice should be held in higher esteem.
Right.
But I think the most important criteria would be take advice from people that you know their life and their marriage, and you would aspire to have a marriage similar to theirs.
Yes.
So you don't necessarily listen to the gurus or the authors or the podcasters or the pastors who have the most following. If you don't know anything about their life and marriage, they may treat their spouse horribly.
Yeah.
And they've just learned the great things to say publicly.
Right.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
That's not a good recipe. And, again, if I'm hiring a physical, dietary coach or a physical trainer to get in good shape,
right?
Am I going to get the 500-pound person who's clinically obese that,
right.
maybe doesn't follow any of their own advice, but has written a great book on how to be healthy in 5 easy steps, and they've sold millions of copies?
Right.
I'm going to still say no.
Right.
I'm going to find the person that is physically healthy, that
right.
has applied the tools and principles and have proven them to be successful.
Right.
The same is true in relationships. So if it's the same, one and the same, it's the famous person with a lot of followers or the pastor that is giving you great advice and telling you how to live your life in marriage, and they have a fantastic dynamic marriage, and their wife would attest to that, or their spouse would say absolutely, or their kids would say, yeah, they are exactly what they say, and it's legit, and I can't wait to grow up and have my own marriage just like theirs.
Right.
Then, by all means, listen to their advice.
Right.
Many of you listening do know Nichole and I's relationship. We've been transparent about it, and we hope that you find some tools and helps from some of our pitfalls and the 28-year journey that God has blessed us with. But don't just take our word for it. If you don't know us, and if you don't know anything about us, you just hear our voice, great. Hold our advice up to the Word of God, and find someone that will also either affirm and confirm it or give you different advice, but again, with that criteria of, do they have a marriage you would aspire to have yourself?
Exactly. Because remember, you're inviting their voice, their opinion, their advice into your marriage.
Yes.
They are steering for that moment your marriage.
Yes.
So it is so important that you understand where that advice is coming from. Mm-hmm. You know that the years have been put in, you know the hard work's been put in, you see it in their daily lives, and you can trust it because you're inserting it into your marriage. And protect your marriage. Protect your marriage above everything else. We always said we didn't, our kids, they're an addition to us in our marriage. We love our kids and they know they are loved beyond, but they also know our marriage comes first. Our relationship comes first, and they were an addition to it, and they didn't replace it. And that's why as empty nesters, we like each other. Because even if you do it right,
they're going to move on and live their lives, find their families and move forward. And then what happens? Then it's back to just you and me.
Right.
And if the focus was on them, if they were a replacement for our time and our intimacy, then you have this vacuum that usually is filled with something else that's not healthy.
Right.
And so we've had date nights, we've had conversation, we've had intimacy, and we maintained it. And that's one of the big things that I would say that if someone were going to ask me, almost 30 years of marriage to this one amazing woman, what would you say keeps a relationship healthy and thriving? And for me, I would say never stop exploring. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things. I've never gotten complacent and just said, wow, I know everything there is to know about Nichole. I'm still discovering things about you. You are an amazing, complex, intelligent, magnificent woman. And every day I learn something new. And it's a privilege to discover that. But if I had just, in the first couple of years, I learned enough. Now we know each other. We know the buttons to push. We know how to make you mad, know how to smooth it over, which apologies work best, or what gifts will calm you down or excite you. And then it would be easy to kind of coast on autopilot.
Right.
But then we'd be missing out on so much more. So never stop exploring. So every day it's like, learn something new and have that perspective of what else can I learn about my spouse today.
Right. And that's what else can I learn about my spouse today? And that's what we did for our anniversary, which is, okay, so people know us are not going to be like, what? Shocked about this. But we're, goal-oriented. We're pretty driven. We love to build and dream and run hard after it.
Yes.
We're forever students, always wanting to learn and grow. And so we had an amazing, which actually James planned the entire thing, an amazing day. We went to dinner and over candlelight, which was the little battery operated one. And we realized that I was trying to see the inside of our rings. Okay, let me back up. When we got married for our wedding, we sang Endless Love to each other. Yes, Lionel Richie. It's true. We did that. That's how long
my love, there's only you in my life.
It's true. It was so beautiful.
And Nichole actually sang.
I did, and I am not singing. It is not happening. I am a great cheerleader. So anyway, so we're sitting there, and I said, remember how we have our rings engraved on the inside? And I said, which is it? Do you have endless on the inside of yours, or do you have love? And so we tried looking in the candlelight, and turns out we have been married so long and we're so old that we can no longer see in dim light with small letters.
We were being cool, so we didn't bring any glasses, any readers. We were just going to look at that menu from 6 feet away. Pull it a little further.
Take a step back.
Give me the filet mignon. Is that what that says? Okay, good. But now in the light of day, I can see mine says endless.
And mine says love. Yes. So I don't even know what else. Oh, yes, I know. Okay, let me circle back around to where I started. So we were looking at our rings. Which one did yours say? And couldn't see it and couldn't say it. So we had a good laugh about that, and that's a lot of fun about getting older together, right? That's one of the joys of it. And then the question came up, like, moving forward, we've now lived 28 years. Tomorrow we start our 29th year together, because we're big on those numbers and those goals, right? And so what do you want for the rest, for the other 29 years? What do we want from our lives? What do we want? And it was so much fun to learn about each other again. Realize that, yes, we live our lives side by side, hand in hand. We share everything with each other, all our feelings and thoughts and dreams and goals. And yet in that moment, there was still more to learn.
Yes.
When we just asked each other specific questions. Like, what are your dreams? If you could do anything today, what would you want to do? Because that's different than when we got married at 19 and 22, right? And our daughter would say, you robbed the cradle, which it's not true, because James says we're only 3 years and
9 months apart.
4 years.
She was a legal adult.
4 years.
And to be completely honest, and in my defense, I didn't know how old you were. I actually thought you were older than I was, because she was mature. This beautiful, confident woman worked at the district attorney's office, wore these professional suits, and I just see her. I'm like, well, she's got to be in her mid-20s, maybe even pushing 30, but she is looking good. I tell you what, right now, I got to meet this girl. And it wasn't until, we were about to get married, and then I start to learn a little bit more. I start referencing things. You're like, yeah, I don't know what that is. I'm like,
you should see his face. He gets so uncomfortable when we talk. It's not that far apart. Why are you so uncomfortable with it?
Maybe because for 21 years, I've had a daughter that told me I robbed the cradle. Thanks
so
a lot,
fun.
Nichole.
When learning about each other, we asked each other a bunch of questions. And not like grilling each other. There was no notepad involved, note taking, any of that. But just, who are you? Who are you? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? What we did find out as we spend so much of our life together is that we have the same dreams. So that was fun too.
It makes it easier to check off the bucket list.
Exactly.
When we're working towards them together.
But when you put the other person first, when you're always getting to know them, when you've decided that I'm not losing anything by giving my all, my whole life to this person, just like we're supposed to Jesus, you don't lose out on anything. Instead, you gain an entire life worth living here on earth.
Yeah, that's good.
And I love that we get to look forward to heaven. I love that we get to spend eternity with Jesus and in perfection with none of these earthly trials. But this life that he's given us, that Jesus has given us here on this earth, is not meant to be a punishment. It's supposed to be lived fully.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be lived with joy and happiness and relationship and closeness with your spouse. And there's there's a few scriptures that says to lay down your life for your brother and these things, but the marriage, that's completely different. He takes that relationship to a whole other level. God honors that relationship. He doesn't just honor it, he blesses it.
Yes.
And he blesses it so much that he decides to be in it with you. He decides that's the relationship I want to be involved in.
Yes.
That's the one I want to be right there in the middle of because it's so beautiful to him. And the only thing that ruins it is us. Like our decisions, what we've decided, these expectations that we have. What if you change your expectation to what you want, from what you want to what you want to give? How would that change your marriage? If you stop making a list of all the needs of yours that are not met and you start making a list of the needs you want to meet.
Wow.
What would your marriage look like? But again, the enemy is going to come in and tell you, well, that means you're going to lose something.
Yeah.
That means it's not going to be fair to you. You got to shut that down. You got to take those thoughts captive and bring them into submission to God's truth. That says he gave his life for you. Jesus gave his life for you, not knowing that you'd ever, well, of course he knew. He put his trust in us before we put our trust in him.
Yes.
And that's what he's asking us to do with our spouse, is to put our trust in them before they put their trust in you. And hopefully, your spouse is reciprocating, doing it. But if not, do it anyway.
Yeah.
Not just because it honors them, but it honors God.
Yeah.
It honors the other person in the relationship, which is Jesus. And I think that's one thing that we've come together. It hasn't always been easy. We've lost a lot of friends because we put each other first.
Yeah.
We haven't always made family happy because we put each other first.
Yeah.
A lot of people tease and make fun. We don't care because they are in their own relationships. We haven't allowed those voices into ours. We put each other first and we put God first, and it's honoring to him. And we don't need those other voices in our relationship because we're not married to those other voices. They're just one person that we are in a covenant relationship with, that we've allowed and invited Jesus into. Now you're in a covenant relationship with not just your spouse, but with God. And that's why divorce is so ugly too.
Yeah.
Is because God is in that covenant.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the hard work we put in. And it is hard, let's be honest, right?
Well, not for me.
Well, obviously.
If it's true love, it's easy.
Oh, man. I can't even tell you how many times.
Okay, I said that year one foolishly.
He said that year one.
And I woke up 3 weeks later and realized I needed to make a change.
It still makes me want to.
If this is true love, why do I have to work so hard, Nicole?
Yes,
I just saw stars.
Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me?
But she patiently taught me that if you value something, you'll want to work at it.
You'll want to work on it.
And that's one of the things that I think you've said a few times that's worth noting as kind of a final thought is you mentioned losing in several kind of occasions. You know, if I give, then maybe I don't get. Maybe I'm the one that's going to be on the losing end. And a lot of people kind of go in when we said no 50-50, it's 100-100. The other thing that I like to say is strive for win-win, because that was one of the lessons I had to learn, because I like to debate. I like to talk. I like to help people see it my way. That's one of my strengths.
It's one of your spiritual gifts.
It's my spiritual gift. I have the spiritual gift of convincingness. And so, I'll love to help people see it my way. And I don't like to give up until I have helped them see it my way.
Right.
But what I didn't understand that is if I worked that hard to win, that means the other person is a loser. And why would you want the person you love most on the planet to walk around with a big L on their forehead as a loser? So I can't look at win for me because that means lose for you. Right. I have to look at win-win. So it takes some compromise. So, okay, I still like to win, but I want to make sure you win. So what's the win for you? And that's where I start. And then is your win acceptable for me? And then you find that common ground at the negotiating table, and then it's win-win because you don't want the other person to lose. And that's another kind of way you can navigate and practically apply some of the advice that I think we've shared today in terms of, because it might sound great, and then you think, well, how am I really going to do that? How am I really going to die to myself, never care about my feelings, and only serve the other person?
Right.
Like, you try it for 5 minutes, and then you're like, yeah, I'm going back to my other way. Like, this is what I want for dinner, and give me the remote control. And it's hard to apply. Right. But when you start with that win-win, okay, yeah, I want to watch this, and she wants to watch that. I want sci-fi with spaceships, and she wants a love story. Okay, what's a win-win?
A love story, really?
Man.
No,
well, Star Wars, because Han
ancient.
Solo, I mean, Leia says, I love you. He says, I know. That's as deep as it gets. That's practically The Notebook. I mean, this is deep stuff, but it has spaceships, so it's win-win. So I'm looking for those compromises. She's shaking her head. She's like, that's not a compromise.
No.
But the win-win is what's acceptable for her. Will it be a win? And am I willing to do that? And the answer, hopefully, is yes.
Yeah.
But then you learn that. I mean, she loved believe it or not, Nichole was the camper, and she taught me to love the outdoors because I wanted to explore things that she loved. And so I started loving things she loved. I like doing other things, and she started leaning in. Most of you know I love music, and I'm a musician. So I'd quiz her on models of guitars and guitars and guitars, and then we motorcycle rides. Yeah. And so we figure out things, and we immerse ourselves in the interests of our spouse.
Right.
Because that's part of that win-win. I want to get in your world. I want you to win, and then I'm winning when you're winning, and you both thrive, and it brings intimacy. It really does. Yeah. And that's really the last thought that at least I want to share, because I know these things really don't need to go 4 hours, but this one could be, because to unpack almost 30 years of marriage wisdom. Yeah. But really looking for those moments that bring intimacy. Yeah. So whether it's through communication, it's through the way you navigate conflict, it's the way you make the decision, it's the way you commit and hold fast to your commitments and your responsibilities. All of them should bring about intimacy. Yeah. So people will ask me all the time, either in premarital counseling or just advice, or they'll write us or email us, well, can I do this? Is this acceptable? Would I do this?
Right.
Well, ask the question first. Look through the lens of, will my response bring about intimacy? Right. Can I have a separate checking account for my spouse that they don't know about? I don't know. Can you? Will it bring intimacy? If they find out, are they going to be more excited to love you, or are they going to feel betrayed? I mean, it's a very simple, litmus test. Right. Will this bring about intimacy? Right. Do I have to ask for permission to spend money, or can I spend up to $1,000 without asking for permission? Well, if you're using the word permission, again, you're looking at it the wrong way. It's adversarial. Right. It's, it's not the win-win. Right. And really, there's no right answer to that question. The right answer is, well, what will bring intimacy for you, for your goals? Right. Talk about everything, talk about nothing. Which one brings intimacy? I say talk about everything. Hey, I'm going to go buy a candy bar at the store. Yeah, I can probably spend $1 without Nicole's permission. Yeah. But why wouldn't I want to talk about what I'm spending my money on? Because it brings intimacy. Right. It's something else to draw her into my world. Right. And she knows, today I chose Twix instead of Kit Kat. She knows something else about me. So the next time she's at the store, she brings a Twix. And she's like, hey, I remember you bought this last time. And it's just intimacy. It's not because I had to ask for permission to spend $1. It's communication breeds intimacy. That is a winning combination for a relationship.
Yeah, and which brings up another point. That's why when the kids were little, I stayed home. You work full time. I raised the littles during the day. Then we raised them together when you're home, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when you got home from work, the moment you walked in the door, what was my first question?
How was your day?
And you would respond,
fine.
And I would say,
are we going to do this the easy way or the hard way? Because that's not acceptable.
Now, for some, defenses would go up. The walls would go up. Like, what? What's the matter? Why do you want to know about my day? You don't trust me? What's going on? Of course, it was just work. That wasn't the point. The point was we just spent 10 hours apart. Mm-hmm. I living my life over here, you living your life over there. I'm going to tell you how my day went. You're going to tell me how your day went, so we can feel like we've been together. We still know each other. We're still talking about everything. And I know sometimes at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I just lived it. That's what you used to say. I just lived it. That was
a discipline for me. Because
I don't want to talk about it again.
I lived it once, and that was plenty. That was one too many, to be quite honest. So why are you going to make me relive it again? I mean, they call it work for a reason. I wasn't at Disneyland. Right. So, why? Good or bad was an acceptable response. But I realized it was letting you into my world. Yes. And that was valuable to you. And I also found that you felt loved and brought in.
Right.
And that brought intimacy.
It brought intimacy.
And even I said, oh man, there was something I was going to tell you and I forgot. So Nichole was so smart. She bought me a little digital recorder to go on my keychain so that I could record notes during the day so I wouldn't forget when I got home. Oh, there were some things I wanted to tell you, but I forgot. And I got away with that a few times until she said, well, I've got a solution for that. And so I had to record in my little digital recorder. Then I'd come home. Oh, okay. Hey, I remember I wanted to tell you this. And here's my note. And it drew her in. And then I just got better at this discipline. And so now, just in real time or after the fact, we just communicate about everything. And there's intimacy. There are no secrets. There's transparency, vulnerability, which all plays into intimacy. I trust you more than anyone else on the planet.
Right. And you can start to see some pain points in each other's life as well. So when you come home and you're like, man, that was rough. I already know the whole story because I've been on the journey with you every single day. Or if you come home like, you are not going to believe what happened, I'm so excited, then I'm not trying to catch up to be excited. Like, what happened? When did this? Excitement. What? Okay, this is cool, but I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yes.
You're already on the journey with that person.
Yeah.
And I would say the last thing, as James said, his last thing is the first thing, and always is pray for your spouse. Pray for your spouse.
Yes.
And not pray and ask God to change them into who you want them to be, but ask God to make them into who He wants them to be. Mm-hmm. Because you can love wholeheartedly a follower of Christ because they are following Jesus 100%. They are living like Him, so they can't help but treat you the way Jesus would treat you.
Yes.
Which is the way you treat me. Which is the way you treat me. Pray for them. James falls asleep immediately when we get in bed.
Because I have a clean conscience. That's how I sleep at night, friends. No,
I'll tell you why. It's because after he falls asleep, I pray for him. And God knows I need a good hour.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
When he falls asleep, I always snuggle him and I pray for him. I pray that for the wisdom that he has, that God would just add His super to that natural wisdom, which if you've listened to him for like 5 minutes, you know it's just, or if you ever spoken him, it's just off the charts. Listen to any of his podcasts. You'll know God has gifted him with wisdom. He is wise beyond. And so I always pray that God just adds some more of His super to that natural, that God leads him and guides him, that he hungers and thirsts for God's righteousness. And I always pray and thank God for the things that He is, the things, the dad He is, the husband that He is, the son He is, the son-in-law that He is. I thank God for all that He's brought us through together. I just pray over my husband. And let me tell you, when you pray over your husband, you look at them different.
Yeah.
You look at them different. There are people I pray for that when I see them, I'm like, I just want to hug them, right?
Yeah.
Because you feel just a different love for them.
Yeah.
When you have spent time with your Creator, with God, talking about this other person and not talking bad about them. God, it's me again. Okay, I'm going to bring up James just to get out of the way. So
it's like Adam said,
aware.
It's this woman you gave me, Lord.
But just praying for them, praying that God guides their steps, blesses all their efforts, that God open their eyes to anything they may struggle with and give them wisdom and understanding and knowledge in that area. I mean, when you pray like that for your spouse, you can't help but not just cheer them on, but want to help them.
Yeah.
Because God gives you that desire and a different kind of love when you're praying for your spouse. And it's something that it's not the first thing that comes to mind, which is shocking, right? It's shocking, but it's not the first thing you think of. And so I'm going to use the word discipline, but I don't mean that in a cold way, but there is a discipline that has to be put in place. You have to tell yourself, I'm going to pray for my spouse. I'm going to pray for where they struggle or where they have room for growth, as my husband will say.
Nice.
Room for growth.
My husband has a lot of growth opportunities in his life, Lord. So I'd love for you to help with this.
Dang it. That was the one I last night, Mobilized her, our Bible study community. We got together on Zoom. It was incredible. And I was trying to remember that other one, growth opportunities. So if you're listening, Mobilize her, growth opportunities. I hear the everywhere right now. But not just praying for those areas of growth, but also for who He is, and just thanking God down the list for who they are. And when you start to repeat those things of who they are, the things that they're not, start to take a back seat and diminish. And then thank God that you're able to watch the giftings and the talents that he's given them play out. Think about when God created us, when he formed us in our mother's wombs, he gave us gifts. He gave us gifts, and then he formed our personalities and who we are. And so what you're looking at, not the flawed, sinful part, but what you're looking at is a creation of God. Hand sewn, put together, personality, gifting, talent, all of the above. You are watching the miracle of God in front of you. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but that to me is something super special.
Yeah.
To know that I have been entrusted and been given the gift of one of God's creation to spend the rest of my life with. Mm-hmm. It changes everything in your heart. It changes everything in your mind. If you don't have a relationship with God, it won't do very much for you, though. You got to have a relationship with God, too.
That's where it starts.
And that's where it starts. It starts with God first.
You can be the best person, moral, upstanding, selfless individual, but then there's only two strands in that braid, and it's not as strong. And you can only reach so high. You can't have the level of intimacy, the level of communication, the level of love that comes when you add that third strand into the relationship. And I love that we're ending on prayer, because you shared an interesting statistic recently that unfortunately the divorce rate has surpassed 50%, which is disappointing.
Yes.
So more people need to listen to this podcast. So send it to someone that you know.
Correct.
And then unfortunately, divorce amongst married people that attend church together is still over 20%.
Yes. I think it's like 27%.
And so you think, oh, you know, Christian's going to be lower. It is, but it's still
Way too high.
More than a quarter of marriages that attend church together still end in divorce. But what I thought was interesting and so powerful is that it was 0.002% of marriages end in divorce where the spouses pray together.
Yeah.
I thought that was so profound and powerful. You say you pray for me, I pray for you. We pray together. We pray for each other. Mm-hmm. That includes God in the journey, and it opens everything up to the supernatural blessing that can only come when you invite God into the process.
Right.
And so that statistic is a powerful piece of evidence to show that God's promises are real. He wants good things for you.
Right.
He instituted marriage from the beginning, one man, one woman, to have fulfilled, rich relationship.
That's right.
And it's supposed to be the model of love. That's why we're called the bride of Christ as Christians, as the church, because it's that picture of selflessness, love, intimacy, and that forever blessing that we as Christ followers have to look forward to, and we can enjoy a picture of that with our earthly marriages. So that's fantastic.
Yeah,
any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, just one last one. Did I say that 4 times ago?
We've had 6 last ones, and I love it. So
so we're real life creatures. We're
wrapping this thing up 35 minutes ago.
I'm going to speak specifically to women. When we say pray together, I don't mean that you have to wait on your husband to pray.
That's good.
If your husband is uncomfortable or doesn't feel like praying, you grab his hand and you pray.
Yeah, that's good.
You don't have to make it awkward. Let's go to our bedroom. Let's kneel on our bed. You don't have to be at our bed. You don't have to make it awkward. And it doesn't have to be long and super spiritual. You're not trying to impress your spouse. You're talking to God. Mm-hmm. And we say all the time when we pray together, I asked James actually just on Sunday, we prayed together. And I was like, it's interesting when you pray. And I was explaining, he's like, I'm going to be honest, I really didn't know what to say this time. I was kind of figuring it out as I was praying. And so, it's not pretty. It's not eloquent and not using big flowy words. I'm not praying for anybody else. I'm trying to figure out while I'm praying, putting into words, thoughts and feelings, and it's not pretty. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's all I was asking is what's going through your mind when you're praying.
Yeah.
Because it sounded different this time.
Yeah.
Again, intimacy.
Because we know each other.
Getting to know. Yes, getting to know. Don't be afraid of that. Hold one hand. Stand in front of each other. Stand beside each other. One on one side of the door, one on the other side of the door. Whatever it is, 1, don't make it awkward, but 2, pray. And don't be afraid to take the reins on that.
Yeah.
To say, I'll start us off.
That's good.
Or I'll pray for the next 10 times. And when you're comfortable, you just let me know and you can pray. But so often I hear women say, well, my husband doesn't want to, or he won't lead the way, and I'm waiting for him to be the man and lead the way, and he's supposed to be the spiritual leader, and he's not doing it. Hey, you're a strand of 3 cords. Jesus is there no matter who's praying. Don't wait. Mm-hmm. Don't wait. It's too important to wait.
Yeah.
Step up and talk to Jesus on both your behalves.
Yeah.
That's okay to do. You're not overstepping. You're not taking the reins. You're not trying to be the spiritual leader and stepping on your husband and becoming Eve all over again. Blah, 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 blah. Any word that Satan will use to keep you silent.
Yeah.
To keep you from talking to God. Grab his hand and pray.
Yeah. There's freedom in that.
Yes, there is.
That's good advice. Well, thanks for this opportunity to celebrate us and hopefully to encourage you with some words of wisdom on marriage. I hope you found some encouragement. Take some notes. Listen to this a few times. And as I say, kind of digest what makes sense, spit out the bones. Not everything is a one-size-fits-all, but most of it is just biblical principle. It's basic things that you find in the Word of God that we have put real-life application to, and we're just trying to kind of give you a portable version that you can start applying to your relationship today. So we pray that you have the best relationship, the best marriage that God can possibly give you, because that's his desire for you, and that's our hope for you as well. So make sure you send this to someone, subscribe, stay tuned, and thanks for being part of this, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you were encouraged and challenged by today's podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the Mobilized YouTube page and follow us on social media at mobilized.life on Instagram and at Live Mobilized on Facebook. For more information and ways to connect, visit our website at mobilized.life.